Hi, everybody. It's Jill here with Illuminating Women, and this is our Girls' Night Out. And I am so excited to bring to you some amazing ladies who are just going to share very golden nuggets that we need right now. We're hungry for it. We've been chit-chatting, drinking our wine and visiting a little bit, and then we're going to dive into some really hearty good things. This is being recorded on our and going to be put on our Illuminating Women YouTube channel so that you can check. And then we're just gonna, once this is all done, we'll stop the recording because we still got to chat some more. We love to connect. We love to deepen our relationships here. Tonight we're talking about the trauma and the effects of the trauma that are dealing with the COVID-19. It is affecting people's lives, their businesses, their well-being. And before we get started, we just felt strongly, and our speaker for tonight felt strongly this was important to bring forward Brenda Reese, who is the forgiveness coach, to just speak for a few minutes about some things that we can do to help, because in all of this trauma, there is some forgiveness work that will be so freeing for us. So Brenda, once again, we have a YouTube, and I will share it in the chat box, your YouTube when you did our Coffee Connect break and ran us through some, oh my gosh, everybody felt lifted up, and especially your Thursday nights. So Brenda, without further ado, I welcome you and I thank you again for coming and sharing with us tonight.
Thanks, Jill. I'm really happy to be able to share about that, as I've been talking a lot about the forgiveness work and what Nikki is going to share tonight. I'm excited about, because I have a feeling she's going to be bringing to us not only the trauma effects, but kind of a little bit of humor too, right? A little bit of lightness in it. And I think that we all need that right now. And that's kind of about forgiveness. That's how the view I take on forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is not just about resentment and anger, right? But it's about feeling the feelings. And it is about being able to allow and accept those so that we can then transform them, embody them so that they can be dissolved. And so I think it's really important, and I'm excited about what we're going to talk about tonight. And I just wanted to do a kind of a brief little slideshow. I'm going to share my screen. And this is something that I feel very important. I feel that's really important, that in Aramaic, forgiveness means to untie the knot. Now, how many of you, when you've been hurt by someone, or when you feel that something's going wrong, feel that knot in your stomach? It's amazing, right? And how do we feel when somebody says, I'm sorry, or we're able to forgive ourselves? We feel that calmness go through our body. So keep in mind, forgiveness means to untie the knot. And really what we're all looking for right now is peace of mind. That's what I hear most. I hear, Brenda, I want freedom and I want peace of mind. And that's what's happening right now, is we don't have a peace of mind. And I love that she's going to talk tonight about, you know, that we all feel like a little bit of bipolar, right? ADHD, we're all over the place. And so that's really because we're all in our limbic brain right now. We're not in the prefrontal cortex, right? We're in our animal brain because we're under stress and we're into survival. We're not thriving, we are into survival. And there's techniques and there's things that we can do. Now, what I'm going to suggest is something very simple, and that is pause and breathe. Because how many of you forget that? We forget to do that. We forget to pause and breathe. And it is so important. Ladies, when we are feeling upset, when we're feeling like, you know, like that, how many of us hold our breaths? And then all of a sudden we go, okay. So when we are feeling upset, one of the biggest things that I teach in my like 5-week course that I teach on self-forgiveness is just learning to pause. Pause, just like that. And take a breath. And that centers us. It does something in our brain that helps us to go, okay, and then we can take an action from there. But if we go and we just do immediately, we don't pause and we don't breathe, we can make some wrong decisions, right? And then the next thing, I just wanted to give us something to do, because a lot of us need something to do, right? It's hard for us to be, and I'm really going to suggest being, like that pause and taking a breath is super important. But also, how many of you are learning things about yourself right now? How many of you are learning about those people in your household right now? Right? We're learning some things about ourselves and about them. We're finding out the things that are bothering us, right? And so about us, that's what we need to look at first, because in the forgiveness work, we're looking at mirrors when we look at people around us. They are showing us things that we can learn about ourselves. And so take a moment whenever you feel you want to journal and talk about or write about with yourself, what am I learning about myself during this period of time? What have I learned? What's bothering me? What do I like about it? What am I impatient about? And then what have I noticed that I want to change? Because not everything, we're not ready to change everything. We can't. And then what step can I take towards that desired change right now? Maybe just one step, because we're all feeling overwhelmed. We're all feeling, like I said, in the limbic brain. And when we're able to pause, breathe, and say, okay, what is the one step that I can take right now? This is forgiveness. This gets us present. It doesn't have us in fear of the past, right? All that stuff we're hearing on the news, all the stuff we're hearing on the TV or reading about, we can just calm ourselves. And this way we can learn what we really feel about it. Because when we learn to take these steps here, pause, breathe, and kind of say, what am I learning about myself? What do I know about myself? And how can I move forward? Then we can untie the knot. We can untie the knot. And that's really what we want to do. And this is what brings peace of mind and heart. So I want to just ask you to take a moment of that. Let me know how you feel about it. And then I have a little gift for you. That is a mandala. It's a forgiveness mandala that you can go here, and we can post it in the Illuminating Women too. But it's a mandala about I am free and I forgive. Because there's nothing better, ladies, than sitting and coloring right now. And especially a mandala that's infused with forgiveness. Thanks.
Oh, Brenda. Woo! What a beautiful way to get us centered, to get us focused, and to just feel the love that's coming through here. It's even got my Great Dane all, woo, woo, you hear her. So I thank you for that. Thank you so much. It is my utmost pleasure, and what a gift to get this amazing woman. I've been doing some coaching with Nikki. Her mother is in our group, and her mother said, oh, you really got to come to one of her workshops. It was about, and because I do events with Illuminating Women and we want people in there, I was getting, it was about getting butts and seats. I liked it. I thought that's gritty, and you know, how many of us are doing things and we want to have people there, get butts and seats. Well, she's marketing. But she's more than marketing. I swear to God, this woman does windows and toilets. You know, she just seems to manage it all. And she's phenomenal. She lives in San Diego, and she is one of our speakers for our upcoming conference that we had to postpone. And I'll never forget, she's so tied in, and we had been talking a lot about the conference. And when I had to make the decision, I remember I called an emergency advisory circle meeting to help have my advisory circle help me. And I called her, and all she did is she answered the phone. She says, I know why you're calling me. And we had this chat about how we can service people and how it can be best done. So Nikki, welcome to this place. Thank you for sharing and spending time and filling our cups, giving us new information to how we can move out of this chaos into a brighter and better place.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's beautiful down here in San Diego. Heard you guys had some heat waves going on. That's awesome. I know, Jill, your policy is to have everybody on mute and hidden. I am a interactive type of speaker, so anyone that wants to come off mute to speak, that's fine. And I don't do this in a vacuum. I don't just speak for 30 minutes straight because I would fall asleep too. So if you guys need anything, feel free to chime in and have a conversation with me about it. So just chime in. Jill, I'm going to ask if you can watch, or Brenda, if one of you could watch the chat just because when we go into screen share, I can't see any questions that come up. I did want to ask the women in the group, and there is a way to do it, but I don't know if you guys know how many women in the room with us, the Zoom room, are entrepreneurs. They run their own business, and how many are employees, people that work for another company? Is there?
I'm an entrepreneur.
Awesome. Anybody want to come off mute?
Entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur. All right. Sheree, how about you? Entrepreneur?
Yeah, self-employed.
Yeah.
Self-employed. My own business.
Awesome. How
Both. I'm both.
Both. Okay. So you are having a lot of fun right now. Okay. So for the most part, do we have most of the people in the room have an entrepreneurial leaning? Okay. All right, good.
Retired entrepreneur.
Okay, I'm going to grab the screen share super quick, and we will open up this little thing. Okay, so you guys all saw my little post that had to do with, and this was actually a Facebook quote that came up in a post that it says, does anyone else feel like they're a lazy perfectionist with ADHD and chronic fatigue who is pretty chill besides the occasional panic attack and loves their friends but hates people? And, you know, I saw that post and just went, yes to all of that. My background's in pricing and profitability, or that's what I do for a living. I'm a pricing and profitability consultant and a savvy CEO coach. And I transition women from being employees working in their business to visionary leaders leading their business. So for me, I have a 23-year background in behavioral profiling and psych. So, and my first part of my life, I actually worked as a sexual assault victims advocate for 6 years. And then I actually went on to work with foster care teens who were going to age out in the system. So I literally spent 12 years working in trauma. And I always wondered how that trauma background was ever going to play into my coaching and consulting business. What was that ever going to have to do with anything? And then COVID hit and trauma became a very foremost aspect of a lot of what conversations I'm having with my clients. I literally spend most of my day talking to entrepreneurs and talking them off ledges, trying to navigate the acronyms we're all drowning in, and we'll cover some of those slides in here, the EDD with the UI and the PUA and the PAC and the PPP and the IDL and da-da-da-da-da, and everybody's like, what is all these acronyms? And it makes a lot of sense, right? Because it doesn't make any sense. And so that's something that I do. So this is something that historically we need to take a look at, because trauma in disaster, we have to take into consider this thought process that in disaster, normally we are an isolated pocket. So plane crash, tornado, hurricane, some type of disaster, wildfires come in. And normally people from external of the trauma come in to stabilize the people who have been traumatized. What do you do when the entire planet is traumatized? So now what do you do? Because you're literally having a traumatized person trying to support other traumatized people, which is a problem. It's a challenge. So coming into that aspect of, we are not only navigating the people we're supposed to be supporting, but we ourselves are in any given moment experiencing the same trauma event. So this becomes extremely challenging. The other aspect is that most traumas have an end in sight. You have a plane crash, the plane has crashed, it's over, now you're getting on with it. You have a sexual assault, you have come to the end of it, you have the end of it, now you're dealing with the moving on from it. It's close. What we're experiencing now is closer in similarity to war or to chronic abuse. So somebody who is suffering from domestic violence or child abuse, where they don't have an end in sight, and that lack of certainty, because you'd be surprised how resilient human beings can be. How many of you guys have ever, you're suffering through pain. Okay, I'll say labor. And okay, maybe that's not a total end zone. You don't totally know when it's going to end, but you know that it's not going to go on for a year. I mean, raising the child goes on for 18 years and past that, and that's all brutally painful, but I'm talking about labor. You'd be surprised how long a human being can tolerate something when they know when it's going to end. So I've seen this working with people in trauma, especially I was an acute responder to the sexual assault response team. So my beeper would go off. Yes, I had a pager. That's how old I am. Would go off at 2 a.m. And it was my responsibility for getting the victim through the exam and the initial interrogation. So she would be able to tolerate just about anything as long as she knew when it was going to end. So she could handle it for a certain period of time. But we are stuck in a situation right now where we don't have an end point, which amplifies the trauma response. So one of the things that happens in disasters, and I'm sure you guys can let me know whether you agree with me or not, have you seen that glassy look in their eye that they get? Right, where they mill around and you see the news interview them, say after a tornado, and they go, can you believe that happened? That happened. Did you see that happen? Like they just keep that's known as milling. Okay. So one of the challenges, it's one of the first defense mechanisms we go into when we're in a group trauma. We were all sent home. So where do we mill? We mill online. Okay. We were milling online. So a lot of us who are seeing the social media and you're literally watching what you thought were sane people act completely insane. You're not understanding what's going on. If you notice the posts that were going on earlier in the epidemic, they all seemed like, can you believe this? Like it was a lot of this, huh? And you just kind of were in shock. One of the things I've always been concerned about in trauma response is as you come out, it's as the shock wears off, you kick into some pretty strong emotions. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. So why does everyone seem to be suffering from bipolar disorder, including myself? That's what's going on, okay? You're rapidly cycling from fight, flight, and freeze. So this is a common thing. How many people have heard fight or flight response? Most everybody has heard about fight or flight. Thanks, Brenda, for raising your hand. I need the interaction. It's killing me not to have blank screens. Thanks, Sherry. People forget that actually 80% of the population freeze. They don't fight, they don't flight, they freeze. They play dead. It's if I hold really still, nothing will happen. So we've actually had I actually had an example of this. My brother was traveling in Costa Rica and he was sitting at a restaurant and a monkey came out of the trees and attacked a table with this couple. And the monkey went at the woman who was sitting at the table. Her boyfriend, partner, husband, we don't know, froze. He just was like, whoa. And almost everybody else in the area froze as well. Johnny leapt up, grabbed the monkey, threw the monkey off of her, and acted. So it was an example of the fact that fight typically is not the first thing that we go to. Flight is typically something we don't go to immediately, although it's more than fight. And then freeze is normally what we do. We just hold still and we go, oh my gosh, what just happened? So when you're looking at the different things, I want you guys all to recognize, is this something that you have seen in yourself or you have seen in others around you, particularly online? So has anybody witnessed any posting going on where someone was, oh, I flipped these around. Oops, I flipped these around. Fight should be there, flight should be over here. So flip those two around, acting out, behaving aggressively, exhibiting defiance, protesters, arguing, screaming, hyperactivity. Those are all fight responses, okay? So we're seeing that now, right? What we saw earlier, though, was more in the flight and freeze framework. So you saw numbness, refusing to meet basic needs, unable to act or move, flat, kind of a flat affect. You didn't know what you felt. You just felt blah, like you didn't have almost that numbness. You didn't have a connection. Or who was sleeping a lot? Who was sleeping a lot? Like you felt like you needed to take a nap in the middle of the day. Who found themselves like daydreaming? You'd all of a sudden, your mind would just drift off, avoiding, hiding, and wandering, okay, withdrawing. So that's flight and freeze. So it's important in understanding this, because I'm a business coach and I work in consulting for pricing and profitability, was I had clients that were calling me and going, I don't know what to do. Everything we had planned on how I work and have a process with clients isn't working anymore. Everything's not working anymore. And that is very true. It wasn't working anymore. And it looked like things were, and people were not very creative. Like something was like they weren't moving, and you were like, what's going on? They're acting really erratic. And it took me saying, wait a minute, put them in the trauma response, and now their behavior is actually very, very predictable. Then it becomes much more predictable. So one of the things that we want to talk about today is how you have, when you're in sales, something called buyer sentiment. Is everybody familiar with buyer sentiment? Have they heard that term before? So a buyer sentiment is those emotions and those triggers that are all going on with them. And it's everybody makes a purchasing decision from either a fear, a pain, or a desire. That's it. Those are the only three things people make purchasing decisions based on. I'm afraid, I'm in pain, or I want something. I desire something. Can you imagine which one's the most effective sales strategy? Anybody?
Fear.
Fear is the number one most effective way to sell.
And Nikki, can't these rotate and happen again and again? I mean, it's like they're cyclical.
Correct. Actually, you can when somebody has bipolar, and they circle back and up and down, manic, depressive, they're actually, the term is called rapid cycling. We're actually having experiences with us on an hour by hour basis where we're cycling up and down. So when we're entrepreneurs, it's extremely difficult for us to keep momentum behind our businesses, because when we can tap a client who's in the right phase, which is in action, we then ourselves might be cycling back down into freeze or into flight. And so we're not coming up when they're coming up. So it becomes very challenging to keep everybody symbiotically lined up. So that's a huge challenge that you have to manage, about being consciously aware of it. So buyer sentiment becomes almost a moving target. So many of us have three different types of ways we work. How many people are, Sherry, your service offering, right? Brenda, you do service. Is everybody pretty much a service offering? No, because Jill, you've got products.
Yeah, I have products. Michelle has products.
Okay.
And the other thing that's so cool that you're bringing this up, because Michelle also donates time to a child. And I imagine with all of this has changed. So it's so cool that she's on this. But everybody else here, I think, is pretty much service oriented.
Okay. So service offerings, typically when you're building out a sales funnel, which means that you have an inexpensive buy-in up at the top of the funnel, funneling down and tightening down till you have your one-to-one transactions. So those are the most expensive or highest investment for clients to invest in. But typically the lowest buy-in is a do-it-yourself. The mid-level is a done with you, meaning you work symbiotically. Those would be master classes, group coaching, things that you do in groups. And then the one-to-one would be more one-to-one. So Sherry, do you work with, what do you work with?
I just work with people that want flower pots.
Flower pots. Okay. So you're working in gardening. So you're service, but you're also a product. There's a product you're producing.
Right.
So it might be a little bit more closer to Brenda's work when she's working with somebody in a group coaching program versus Brenda working one-to-one with them. Okay. So what you're going to find is that as the trauma response is creating the effect, they're going to rapid cycle between what they want from you and what they're capable of handling from you, if that makes sense. Okay. They're going to go from a time where do it yourself was really, really big. So at the beginning of the epidemic, do it yourself was highly done. Everybody was like, okay, I'm going to move. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to do this. And there was a ton of frenetic energy behind them that they were like, move. And you're like, okay, calm down. Like my phone's exploded. My email exploded. Everything was like, move, Nikki, let's do this. I need to pivot. And how am I going to price it? And what am I going to do? And it was this frenetic, like, I'm like, ooh, you are in fight and you are going to crash hard because you are so pushed hard on your cortisol levels right now. They're running off adrenaline. So that's what you were seeing. And then about 2 weeks in, so then I had everybody focused on do it yourself. Then they hit a wall. They hit a proverbial wall, and everything that somebody was working with do it yourself and done with you collapsed. And then everybody literally went into this phase where they were like, I can't do anything. So you either do it for me. So Sherry, I don't want to go to I don't want you to tell me what to do. And then I go to the gardening place and then they tell me what I should get. And then I come back and Sherry coaches me online and says, oh, plan it this way. Sherry, I will give you money to come and plot. I can't do that. I can't do anything for myself right now. They went into that phase, that just shut down phase. For somebody like Jill with Isogenics, girl, you're going to have a whole big boom when this is all over because nobody wants to go on my 600-pound life. I know I don't, but you're going to have this situation where normally they would be ordering for, you would coach them or tell them what they should be ordering, whatever. They would have gotten to a point where they said, just do it for me. Now it's harder for Brenda because forgiveness work is an inside job, right? It's an inside job. So she can't do it for you, much as we would all wish that were possible, that she could wave a magic wand and we'd all be fine. That's not really our option. So a lot of people had a collapse in business because they were like, wait a minute, they were all there and then they were gone and I don't know what happened. And literally you're watching these buying trends pitch up, pitch down, pitch up, pitch down, and it's super, super erratic. Because the other option that you have right now when they are in freeze and flight is all you can do is market. Just be a voice. Just keep talking, keep putting out content, because that's literally all they're capable of absorbing right now is just your expertise. And they will pick and choose what they can and cannot absorb. Does that make sense to everybody? Thank you. Oh, yay, we have a light. They will just absorb what they can or cannot handle, okay? One of the examples that we have of this being highly effective in garnering market share is the Great Depression and Ford. Ford did a lot of marketing during the Great Depression, and because his visibility was so high, when the Depression started coming out, he claimed so much market share of that he was able to go supersonic. So when you're in a highly competitive field, you being very visible right now and very forward with content and being available is going to actually help you as you pull out of the curve at the end of this. Does that make sense to everybody? I know that we get to that phase where normally I'm saying, stop working for free, stop giving your information for free, stop doing this for free. I'm a big proponent of all of that. Here's what my rule is for the rule of free during a pandemic. If it's one to many, meaning a video, a talk, a presentation, something like that, a Facebook Live, where you're an individual and you're pushing out to a lot of people, that's okay for free. If they want you one-on-one, that's monetized. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Thank you for interacting. The mute thing's freaking me out. Okay.
We'll unmute and interrupt you if we have a question or something's going on, because you're saying some very meaty things.
It is meaty. But I want to make sure that everybody's getting it, because it is meaty. Right. Okay. So when you're working with somebody and what you're starting to see, who here is familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah, I am.
Should be. Horrendous shitty. Anybody else? Okay. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. These are known as, you can actually see the more base the need becomes, the more urgent it becomes. So normally when I teach sales and revenue, I say the deeper you can hit the fear pain point, deeper in the pyramid, the easier the sales going to come. The challenge is that I want you guys to look at this stuff over here on the side. Do you think a lot of people right now in this trauma are into creativity, spontaneity, lack of prejudice, acceptance? They're not there. So one of the things that was something I wrote a paper on when I was in college was this notion that women or people that were in refugee camps or were in war-torn countries, why were they so violent? Why were they protesting? Why were they acting out so violently? Why was going this? They just need more education. They need more education. And I had to get people to understand that when you're in a trauma response, they're not taking in information on an educational level. That's not where they're going. They're not worried about respect by others, respect of others, achievement, confidence. They're down deep. I need to breathe. I need to eat, I need to sleep. I'm going to skip the sex part, the homeostasis and excretion, which to me always was like, what's up with that? And then there was a run on toilet paper. So now that line totally makes a lot of sense to me. I just got to say, people, that was a big thing for them.
So Nikki, I think this is fascinating because I'm glad Michelle is on the call, because Michelle is with Melaleuca. And Luca, I think, had probably the largest run on the cleaning products because people wanted a safer, healthier cleaning product, which they have. Now, I'm thinking about for Michelle, how she capitalizes on customers and seeing that there's opportunities because it is a company that you can buy in and get paid back. How would she be able to hit on some of these things?
So I have a few clients that are with Melaleuca, moms making six figures. A couple of them are clients of mine or friends of mine. There's actually going to be an uptick in direct sales company enrollment because we're all home and we don't have jobs. And the really interesting thing is if we follow the trends and the patterns that we saw off the 2008 crash, men went fetal. So when they lost their jobs, they sat in a corner and they rocked back and forth and they're like, oh my gosh, I lost my identity. What do I do? Women said, oh, thank God, I'm going to get severance pay. I'm going to get unemployment. And then I'm going to actually get to go do what I want to do. Heck yeah. It's how we literally in 3 years went from being even female business owner, female entrepreneurs to male entrepreneurs. Female entrepreneurs now outnumber male entrepreneurs 3 to 1. 3 to 1. Because we went agile. We got very creative with what we needed to do to make money. So there is something to be said for that. Now there's a little problem with that statistic. There's a little number problem with that. They still out earn us 4 to 1, 10 to 1. So it's not good.
That's sad.
It's sad. And that's the craziest thing. So let's do that math. In the glass ceiling of corporate, women make on average anywhere from 76 cents to 89 cents on the dollar, depending on the industry. Does anybody know what female entrepreneurs make on average? 25 cents on the dollar.
I was going to say 24.
And we set our own prices. So are we being suppressed by a male patriarchy, or are we shooting ourselves in the foot?
A little of both, right?
A little of both. Little of both. We're most likely to get pushed in a negotiation, which is why I'm super stoked that Jill's getting all of you guys and spread the word around all the Illuminating Women, all your friends. Get that book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It is written by a former FBI hostage negotiator, and it turns your head on how to negotiate. And right now, every last one of us should be negotiating our car payments, our credit card payments, our land, everything. We have never had a greater time when we need to negotiate, including what are we eating for dinner tonight, because the hoodlums in the house are all at each other's throats and nobody wants to eat the same thing anymore. So for sure, negotiations are really, really, really powerful tool right now.
And
So-
Denise is on here, and she's going to be good at that. She's got some experience in the back of it, and she's one of those. She's a mom and helps with her husband's business and does all this little fingers and stuff. But to get to know her is to know where she understands money and understands that negotiating skill. So it'll be exciting when we get into this book.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's a really great book. There's a ton of resources on YouTube, so if, and all those other areas. So if you guys want, just search it and go check it out. You don't necessarily have to read the whole book. There's a lot of video out from him. As far as Melaleuca goes, when you're coming down into, for Melaleuca, you're looking closer, and direct sales, you're looking more at the number 2 level, right? Security of body, employment, resources, morality, family, health, and property, right? So right now, most of us are sitting right at level 2, okay? That means that nothing above level 2 is getting any attention. Does that make sense? When we're stuck at that bottom level, it's very difficult for us to get our heads up the chain because we're at a baser level. Now, if this thing goes on, as we anticipate it will, and we start to have a political tug-of-war where the resources and the stimulus that's been pushed out to help back us up starts to contract and food scarcity starts to become an issue, now we're going to get into some serious trouble as far as this goes. So if your service offering or product functions in these bottom levels of solving some of these problems, you are in a very ideal place to be, if that makes sense, because you're solving a problem on a baser level. The thing I want you to understand about 1 through 4 is that they're called deficiency needs for a reason. They're called deficiency needs because you actually don't know they're in need until you are without them. So we are unaware that that is a need we have until we can't do it. Okay? So you don't realize, you don't go around going, oh, I'm totally aware of my security of my body and my resources and my morale. We don't have that until there's a threat to it. And then you go, whoa, wait a minute, I'm hyper aware of that now, okay? So when you're working with clients and when you're interacting with people, you got to remember this pyramid. And you also have to remember to check back in with yourself to say, where am I functioning on this hierarchy of needs? Because if I'm at the base, then it's very difficult for me to get up and want to do something that has to do with working today. Like that's not going to come further up. I can see there's a chat. Oh, cool.
I just put the link in for the book.
For the book. So good. Okay. So how do you walk the tightrope between taking care of business and taking care of yourself when you're dealing with all of this? And one of the things I'm going to tell you about is take advantage of the stimulus stuff that's being put out for you to help secure your well-being. So I don't know what's going on in Washington as far as the PUA and the PAC implementation. Maybe Jill or somebody in the group can tell me. Have you guys been able to access as entrepreneurs the expanded unemployment benefits and to get the extra money and funding? Has everybody gotten that yet?
Well, some have, and some are still seeking, and some have not.
Okay. Do you know if it's available even on the site? Meaning that your EDD has the ability?
There was some talk about it. I'm not 100% certain. Brenda, do you know?
Well, I do know that it is available, and then I do know that it's just people are upset that it's taking so long.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I'm hearing most. But the unemployment piece, people are getting. It's the other part for the business that they're having a struggle with.
Which part? The stimulus loans, the programs, or do you mean the other stuff?
The stimulus loans.
Okay. So we'll talk about the unemployment just really quick so that everybody understands the different levels. You now have, there's two things and they get confused and get grouped together. PUA is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. That is what expanded traditional unemployment to include people who do not traditionally pay into it. Okay, those are the sole proprietors, self-employeds, and the independent contractors that don't normally pay into that system and therefore normally don't get benefits from it. The pandemic unemployment assistance expanded that out. So it basically defaulted, you don't have to prove anything, down to 50% of your state's average unemployment benefit. So I don't know what that is in Washington. In California, our average is like 360 something. So ours is 167 a week. And that gives you guys coverage backdated starting February 2nd and going all the way through to December 31st of this year for a maximum of 39 consecutive weeks. And you just need to demonstrate that you were impacted by COVID. Your business and your employment was impacted by COVID, okay? The PAC is the piece that actually gives everybody the boost, which is the pandemic additional compensation. That's the additional $600 a week that starts March 29th and goes through to July 25th, okay? That piece is the healthier chunk that's actually going to provide a little bit more stability for everyone. And obviously there was the stimulus checks that went out that not a lot of people, that I don't know if everybody's getting. I have, but both my parents have. But is there any questions around the unemployment side of this system? Because this is a point of a lot of confusion for people, whether they're allowed to apply, how do they apply, what does it all mean? So is there anybody that's confused about that at all?
Not so much confused, but I did have a comment that people may or may not know. Right now, there's so much fraud in the state of Washington with unemployment that they have delayed the compensation for this week by 2 to 3 days. So even if you've been getting unemployment and, you know, with or without the additional compensation, they've put it all on hold so they can dig deeper and verify, because there was an article in the news talking about Snoqualmie School District. Like 4 out of 10 people that are still working, the district was saying they'd received a claim for unemployment for these people, but they haven't.
They hadn't? Or
they haven't submitted it. They're still working.
Okay. Well, the thing about the PUA is that it's loss of hours as well. You do not have to be completely unemployed. You have to have had an economic impact from it. So it's different. That's that expansion of the benefits that goes beyond normal traditional unemployment. Also that normally with traditional unemployment, you have to prove that you're available for work 7 days a week, that you are searching for work. You have to prove all of that. That is all suspended right now because you can't look for a job when you're supposed to be staying home. So does that make sense to everybody else? This is very interesting.
True, but that's what I'm saying is they're delaying even people who have done that. They're delaying payment to verify that it's not fraud.
Awesome.
And they are encouraging people to go ahead and still sign up for it. That's what I heard today was, yeah, the payments were going to be, but they wanted them to they wanted to encourage them to still sign up for it. Now, Nikki, on the pandemic, on the PUA, what kind of proof are they asking for? Like none?
In California, none. They in the application, which by the way, the delay of all of this getting moving is because the states built their unemployment infrastructure on COBOL as a programming language. The last time COBOL was used was in the 1960s. They don't even teach it in school anymore. So the problem is that there's no one alive to code. So that's one of the main problems that's going on, is that they literally don't have people that know how to work with this programming language. So they were literally pulling people 60, 70, 80-year-olds out of retirement to help code the sites. And so silver lining, we're all probably going to get a more updated unemployment mechanism, which is great because most people now have to wait 3 weeks for unemployment to become active. And now that they're recoding everything and putting it on a more efficient system, you actually can, at the end of the result of this, maybe that you would only have to wait 2 to 3 days to get from your unemployment. So there's a silver lining. Sometimes we have to be forced to change, unfortunately. So the PUA, they just, on my application, just said, what was your gross annual salary last year? So basically for all of you guys that filed a Schedule C, it would be line 31 of your Schedule C from 2019 is what they're asking for. Now, why they're asking for it is if you made over a certain amount in California, which was like 17,800 and something on average for the year, you could get more than the $167 a week. But the base was 167. So if you wanted to show through your Schedule C, I made more, then you could have it leveled up, if that makes sense. Now they're not implementing that yet. They're probably weeks away from that. But there has been some confusion and some questions around this that goes to unemployment and the states not having the funds to pay out the unemployment. That doesn't have anything to do with the PUA and the PAC. At least it shouldn't. The PUA and the PAC is being funded by our federal funds. So this is a confusion thing that somebody chimed in on one of my, we have a absolutely horrific new bill that passed in January called AB 5, and it basically made independent contractorship illegal in the state of California. So it's absolutely decimated the 1099 independent contractor economy in California. And you guys just all should be aware that Washington tabled a similar bill, but now that it has traction in California, there is some rumblings that it will be reintroduced in Washington. So just keep your guys' eye on that one because it's pretty serious. It's absolutely going to hamper small business people from expansion without making everyone an employee. So that's a craziness. But somebody did put in there, everybody should say thank you for the 167 and quit complaining that their money should be higher because you didn't pay into a system and they're paying you out still. So I did some digging and found that the expanded unemployment is actually being federally funded. So that is our taxpayer money. That is our money that we have paid into. And so no one should be feeling like they aren't entitled to this money. It's coming from the Fed. So when they say we're not sure we have the money to support the infrastructure, the state may be having a hard time withholding the regular unemployment, traditional unemployment, but no one should be having a problem with the PUA and the PAC as far as funding on a state level because it is coming from the Fed. Supposed to be. Notice I'm putting that in caveats. Supposed to be. Okay. So does everybody have clear unemployment route? Okay. The business stimulus side, I'm just going to call it like it is. We all as business owners were caught in the crossfire on a battlefield, and most of us were nicked or are actually bleeding out, various levels of the fact that we got hit with shrapnel and or bullets. And we were laying on the field and the federal government is the medic and says, we're coming to help you. And we laid there and was like, yay, except it's one medic for 100,000 bodies on the field and they're not coming for you. So from the very beginning, EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, was grossly underfunded and was never going to do what it said it was going to do. The SBA is 2.5 years in arrears for funding traditional 7A loans. That thought that they could at all handle this type of situation was totally ridiculous. It was never going to happen, which is why you saw a lot of you guys get the promise that you would file for EIDL and you would get a $10,000 grant within your bank account within 72 hours. And everybody was so excited about doing that. And then out of nowhere, you got a letter a few weeks ago stating that it was going to be $1,000 per employee and that it got cycled down. Did anybody on the call apply for EIDL and get it? Jill, did you get it? You did get it. Good, good, good. And if I'm correct on that grant, you got no email, no notification. All of a sudden the money was just in your bank account, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Not nearly what I was hoping.
Nope.
I'm not complaining. A little bit helped.
I will say this though, a client of mine who is a CPA, their client actually signed loan docs for the EIDL, and they actually were funded for 50% of their income for 2019. So it was a good, healthy loan. Still a little unclear how the grant piece is going to work, except to say that it's going to be a pure loan. Nonprofits 2.75% over 10 years. Actually, I think it's up to 30 years, but I haven't seen anybody with those terms. And then regular businesses were 3.75%. So that's a straight loan. That application is completely closed, even though the CARES Patch Act gave it another $60 billion. It's like spitting on a forest fire. But that was something that if you got your application in, you probably should be seeing at least 1,000 per employee that you had. Most people made an error because there was no guidance surrounding it. And if they were self-employed, they said, how many employees do you have? And they marked 0, thinking, I don't count, you count. So that's a challenge. So PPP, who on the call applied for PPP? That's the Paycheck Protection Program. Anybody on the call apply for PPP? Jill did. Anyone else? Okay. If the PPP is not anything anybody's interested in, I can completely skip this section and we can just go on to question and answers.
Well, we're getting down to our time.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brenda, what?
Sharon had raised her hand too on the PPP.
Who?
Okay. Sharon.
Oh, Sharon.
Okay, so
I got it. I got my loan. I'm good. I don't need any.
You did. Great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sharon, have you been given adequate guidance on how to make sure it's forgiven?
Yeah, but I don't know that I'll be able to because I only have one employee, and I thought I might. The question I have: can I put myself on the payroll with that and start clocking?
Absolutely.
Okay, so can I give myself claim my own salary? My own pay rate?
You can. So there's a couple aspects of the CARES Act that got ignored because of all the hubbub around PPP, but there were some extra added incentives into the CARES Act that if you opted not to do PPP, there was an employee retention tax credit that was like $5,000, which was a really nice one. And there was deferment of payroll tax payment for the next 2 years. So that is important information. You actually, Sharon, would not actually be punished at this point for filing Q1 payroll because the 941s, which is the payroll thing, is actually not due until July 15th. So you would actually could start payrolling yourself from January moving forward.
So I could retro pay myself. So if I did that and then I chose to reinvest that back in my business, that would look at the owner's contribution.
Yeah, and in the end, you're then now paying out payroll taxes though. So you would have your employee contribution, your employee contribution plus the employer contribution. So that actually can equal almost 30%. The employer piece though can actually be deferred until for 2 years. So that can motivate a lot of us to go on your own payroll, which would then protect you moving forward from not just a pandemic, but a car accident or a health scare or anything else where you need to quit working for a bit. It can give you that added protection by doing that.
So you're saying, just to clarify, I can go retroactive paying myself to January?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. For people who are still working, this is a really great way because a lot of people were like, well, but I'm still working. I don't need the money. I will tell you this. The PPP is only 1% fee. That is very cheap capital. I'm just going to be honest with you. You will never see working capital at 1% a day in your life. It will not happen. It's an accelerated repayment. It's 24 months. But you have 6 months of deferment. So that is a good option for people if you want the working capital, meaning PUA and PAC may run out. And I need to be honest, the economic tsunami coming at us, and this is not to be inflammatory and this is not to invoke fear, it's just the way it is. I personally took the PPP and held it and then I applied for PUA because I had already applied for PUA and PAC when the PPP program, I applied for it. I'm going to hold that money Because if PUA and PAC shut down and I'm still not economically recovered because we have a second wave or something else happens, I want working capital that is accessible to me, and it's only 1%. So
Wow.
a lot of people may want to consider taking the PPP because the PPP was really designed for paycheck, and EIDL was supposed to back everybody up on overhead expenses. And now they were rolling the EIDLs into PPP. So a lot of business owners are taking the PPP, still taking unemployment and holding it for overhead, rent, utilities, short-term debt repayment. So that
And if the self-employment, is that retroactive?
Self-employment?
Well, to apply self-employed unemployment.
Yes, it's retroactive. Mm-hmm.
Out to what date?
You can take the PUC as far back as February 1st if you can show how it impacted your business at that point. And that's the smaller number that you get. The PAC, the additional compensation of the $600 per week, that's retroactive to March 29th and goes all the way through to July 25th.
Thank you so much for that information.
Yeah,
Appreciate
not a problem.
it.
Sharon, if you need to call me, this is what I do all day, is go over these programs.
Okay. All right, great.
For
Thank
somebody
you,
like, Cherie, do you have employees? Who on the call has employees, actual staff? Jill,
I do.
Sharon does. Anybody else?
Well, Sharon North does, kinda. Yeah. Sharon, don't you, honey, with your company? She's muted, and maybe Sharon North. Well, she might have gone to the bathroom.
So there's some additional options there. The employee retention tax credit is a healthy one. And
wait, Sharon's back on. Wait a minute. Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, our company is set up differently. Yeah, we do have employees. In fact, I am an employee of our company.
Great.
David sits his head because of my age and what we could do with Social Security. I am actually an employee of North Professionals. David is the owner. And then when our ages are 5 years apart, I'm about to hit where it is cheaper for me to be the owner and him to be the employee. So that's how we set it up for the first 5 years.
And are you a general partnership, or are you an LLC, an S corp?
LLC.
LLC. And are you tax designated as a sole proprietor or tax designated as an S corp?
Ooh, I don't remember.
If you're required to take payroll, you're likely tax designated as an S corp.
Yeah, I don't remember. David takes care of that part.
So for any of you guys that are, again, I like to look for silver linings. If there's any of you guys that have been wanting to transition to LLC, wanting to transition to a payrolled environment because it's going to help you qualify for home loans and auto loans and everything. Fact is banks would rather look at a $2,000 a month W-2 than a $6,000 a month Schedule C. That's just the way it is. So if you guys have wanted to look at going into a corporation or going into payroll, this is a really, really good time to do it because you can get the employee retention tax credit, which is up to 50% of $10,000 in wages. It's $5,000. So and there's no question of forgiveness on that one. So there's some other things. Sharon, keep your eyes open just because there's a lot of moving targets. They're realizing trying to expend all that money within 60 days is proving problematic for people. So there might be some adjustments to that coming down the pipeline. So just keep an eye on it and keep your documentation super clean. But yes, you can add employees. You just can't subtract employees, if that makes sense to everybody. Okay, yeah. I covered a lot. Is there anybody have any burning questions with anything?
I love how you brought up the trauma piece in the very beginning. I think that this conversation and presentation, to just think about how that affects us and our thought processing. I loved the pyramid of where you talked about where we're at, and to give out, and for all of us right now, and it's almost like staying top of mind is putting out the content, knowing that the sales, they'll be there. And the variety of women on here right now, because there are some of us that are really in flux, right? Knowing what's going to happen next. Sharon Huckleberry here owns a nutrition center, and it sells vitamins and good stuff. And then she offers classes. And it was one of my shout outs to her. I'm glad to see you got on, honey. It's so good to see you.
I'm sorry I missed it. I wouldn't have missed it if I don't know. I think it was tomorrow night, but thank you for reaching out to me.
No, it just, what a godsend in this community, because she's certified in Reiki. And this is another one of those women that does windows and toilets and everything else, because she's just so good at it. But the fact that I walk in her store, it's a health and wellness center. I get it. We do. Brenda does it with us too. It's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. She does an online Zumba class, and and she's been generous. She says, "Here's the fee. If you're really struggling, let's talk." What a generosity that she's having, giving. And she does these Zumbas, and at the end, she'll give a special just a little chat about reminding you and keeping your vibration higher. And all of us just love that. And literally, when I was in so much pain and I couldn't get in to see a doctor, there she was, right there taking care of us. So this is what this community is so important, is the outreach of the women here. Sharon I did not realize what a healer. I knew she was a healer until I laid there on her table going, "Oh my God, I'm dying." She just hands me 3 pills. I just suck them down. I don't care what she's giving me. It was
I didn't ask you to snort it. That was good.
I didn't have to snort it, Exactly. She just gives me something, and then she puts me on this biomat, and she puts me on this, and where I was in bed in pain, can't move, whatever. And I get there to her and I'm like, "I might be able to do Zumba this morning." No. Let's stay relaxed. Let's do. But it was just the beauty of that. Brenda working with our spirit, just all the beauty of the women in this group are just amazing. What you, Nikki, reminded
so good
is this richness of staying afloat and understanding and feeling that pain. And for Brenda to start us off with, because you told me, this is why Brenda's here tonight, because Nikki has been coaching me. I love this woman. I recommend her. But, Nikki, I'm sorry, shameless plug, but Nikki has worked with me and helped me on a time that has been really difficult, difficult. And for Nikki to teach me some of these things, and that's why I knew I needed to bring her in because of the wisdom that's behind that. Because one of the things she said right off the bat, she goes, "Jill, I'm going to talk about trauma, but we need forgiveness work around there." And I go, I got somebody here, we have Brenda, and a lot of us have worked with Brenda. Almost everybody on this call has worked with her and have transformed our lives. This is what we do here. And Nikki, I want to, I'm going to stop the recording here so that we can dive a little deeper and have some more private conversations. Nikki, be sure to give me your information and whatnot, because we'll put it in the chat box. And anybody watching this video, reaching out to, hire this woman, understand the women that are here, because they are incredible. And Nikki, you blow my socks off every time I talk to you, when I'm like, I can't breathe, I got to keep myself above water, and you've inspired me and given me great ideas. And, I just want you to know it transfers out without all of these women that I get the privilege and the honor to lead. And I couldn't do it without all of you, and with you believing and saying yes to me. So I want to thank you for that. And we're going to stay online, But
I wanted to do the PUA and that financial stuff because it helps you get out of that base of the pyramid. It starts moving you into a more secure position in your head where you're not worried about food, and you can start to think next steps when you feel a little bit more security when it comes to having that framework. So that was an important piece. I know it felt disjointed from the trauma conversation, but it is about taking positive steps to try and mitigate the trauma response. So that's part of it. And I would say that anybody that puts out some content that has around the 47, under $50 range, if you are looking to invest in a pivot point, that's the level of an impulse buy. And that is something that when people are rapidly cycling through the various trauma states of fight, flight, or freeze, when they hit fight, it's something that they'll acquire fairly quickly. And it depends on your market. Some it's under 100 is an impulse buy, but there's some things, focus up at the top for that initial buy-in. And that should help give you guys a little bit more traction.
Well, stay on the line here, Nikki, because we're going to go a little deeper, have a few more questions. This is what we do in Illuminating Women, and where you want to be when we say our calls are, because you get so much on the recording, but it gets juicier as we stay on. So anyway, thank you again. Check us out on illuminatingwomen.com and check out our Facebook, check out Instagram, LinkedIn. We are getting a greater power in LinkedIn, and watch our YouTube where this is. And we have wonderful professionals in this group. Please check them out. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Nikki, and blessings, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Love to all of you. Bye-bye.